The Blake house, once a symbol of influence and stability in Willow Ridge, had turned eerily quiet. No reporters on the lawn today. No neighbors dropping off casseroles. Just silence, thick, suffocating silence, settling over marble floors and spotless hallways like dust. Inside, Eleanor Blake sat alone at the breakfast table, staring into a cup of tea she hadn't taken a sip from. The tea had gone cold an hour ago, but she kept holding it, as though warmth might suddenly return. It didn't, Eleanor. Richard Blake's voice cut through the stillness. Calm, controlled, practiced. She didn't look up. I'm not in the mood for another strategy meeting, Richard, she said, as she moved towards the hallway. It's not a strategy meeting. He paused, then added, it's about yesterday. Detective Cole, her fingers tightened around the teacup. Richard entered the room with the composed stiffness of a man who refused to let grief crack his exterior. His tie was already knotted, suit pressed, shoes polished. The perfect image of a grieving public figure except in private. He didn't bother to pretend. She's digging, he said. You know what that means. Eleanor's gaze lifted, her eyes hollow. She's a detective. That's what they do. Richard stepped closer. She's Avery Cole. You remember the Peterson mess? If she thinks something's wrong, she won't stop. Eleanor set the cup down as gently as she could, but porcelain still clinked sharply. Why does it matter? She whispered. If we have nothing to hide, why does it matter? Richard didn't answer immediately. Because they did have something to hide. Something Eleanor tried every day not to think about. Something Jonah had figured out before he died. Eleanor stood abruptly, pacing across the polished floorboards. Our son is dead, Richard, dead. And all you care about is your reputation, your council seat, your image. That's not fair. No, because it feels fair. Her voice wavered. Richard inhaled through his nose, steadying himself. Grief manifests differently for everyone. That's the excuse people use for monsters. She shot back. For a moment, the mask slipped. His jaw clenched. His eyes hardened. Careful, Eleanor. She stopped pacing. Or what? She said, as she returned to the kitchen. A beat of silence. Then Richard reached for the cupboard, pulled down a glass, and poured himself water with clinical precision. Detective Cole is not our enemy, he said, but if she keeps digging into things unrelated to Jonah's death, this town will eat itself alive. Unrelated. The word landed like a slap. Upstairs, Jonah's door remained closed. No one had entered since the police left. Eleanor walked slowly up the staircase, each step heavier than the last. She hesitated at the door. Then, with trembling fingers, she turned the handle. Jonah's room smelled faintly of cologne and laundry detergent, boyhood and almost adulthood frozen in time. His baseball glove sat on the desk next to a stack of college brochures. A poster of a championship game hung crookedly on the wall. Eleanor walked to his bed and sat down, her hands gripping the blanket. Then she noticed something. A corner of an envelope peeking out from under Jonah's pillow. Her breath caught. She pulled it out. Her name was written on the front in Jonah's handwriting, messy, rushed. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Mom, I need to talk to you. Things are getting bad. Dad is involved in something he shouldn't be. Mark knows too, and he's scared. I'm not sure who to trust anymore, not even Ryan Miller. Please don't show this to Dad. I'll explain everything when I get back tonight. Jonah. Eleanor's vision blurred. Her chest tightened. Tonight, the night he never came home. Footsteps approached the door. Richard's voice drifted in. Eleanor, are you up here? She panicked, crushing the note in her fist. Just give me a moment, she called out, forcing steadiness into her voice. When she stepped into the hallway, Richard was waiting, arms folded. What were you doing in there? He asked. She held his gaze, every muscle in her body tightening around the decision she was about to make. Remembering our son, she said softly. Richard nodded, though his eyes lingered a second too long on her trembling hands, a second too long on the closed door, a second too long on the possibility that Eleanor Blake knew something he didn't want her to. Later that night, Eleanor sat alone in the living room. Jonah's letter hidden beneath a floorboard she'd pried loose behind the couch. Her tears fell silently. She had no idea who to trust. Not the sheriff, not the town, not her husband, but Detective Avery Cole. Maybe, just maybe, she could trust her. Outside, thunder rumbled. Inside the Blake household, the first fracture had split wide open, and Avery Cole, unknowingly, was walking straight toward the fault line. What secret is Richard hiding? And can Eleanor trust the one detective who seems determined to uncover the truth, even if it destroys everything? Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. Thanks for listening.